Okay, this is tape one, interview with Whitley Butner on March 12th, 1999. Go ahead and say hi, Granddad.
Hi, Granddad.
All right. First question. When were you born? I already know this,
I was born on June the 10th, 1917.
And where were you born?
Well, I was actually born in Washington, D.C.
Where did you end up growing up?
In Atlanta, Georgia.
For how long did you live in Atlanta?
I lived in Atlanta from about 1922 to 1946. That includes World War II.
Okay, that's fine. What was life growing up? What was it like? In Atlanta, we'll just stick with that.
Well, I grew up in Atlanta and I don't want to talk too fast for you.
Go ahead.
I grew up in Atlanta when Atlanta was Atlanta, before it became a megapolis.
Okay.
Or a metropolis, like it is today. At that time, you got to realize Sherman's March to the Sea had devastated Atlanta, and he more or less burned Atlanta to the ground on his march to Savannah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Growing up in Atlanta during the Depression, nobody really had anything. We first lived in a boarding house on Spring Street, and my mother and father and my sister and I all lived in one room with a connecting bath to another room that some other boarder had. Okay. Very close quarters. My sister and I, we slept together, and my mom and dad slept in the big bed. But we were all four in that one room. And one thing I remember, the next door neighbor got smallpox. Smallpox was prevalent in those days.
Smallpox?
Smallpox. Well, everybody in the boarding house, including my parents, so they came down, and they had keyholes in those days, and they had the bellows, and they blew the stuff in to the person's room that was next door to us that had the smallpox. And of course the fumes came in there with us.
Right.
So that was very exciting in those days. And then I went to we lived on Spring Street, and I went to 10th Street School, elementary school. And I still have a picture of our graduating class from 10th Street Elementary School, of which I was elected the president. And on World War I, Armistice Day from World War I, they had a big monument there to the former students that had been in World War I and had been killed in World War I. So I gave the dedication, which was a big thing for me because it closed off the street and we had quite a crowd.
How old were you?
I must have been about, I guess maybe 11 years old. Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned, you have one sister.
I had one sister.
And that's it?
Oh, yeah.
No brothers or?
No.
And what was her name?
Her name was Catherine Elizabeth. And she died in about 1950 or 55. Okay. Well, though I didn't know it, I would walk to school, to elementary school, but not knowing it, I would pass Margaret Mitchell's house who wrote Gone with the Wind. She hadn't written the book at that time and became a celebrity. But moving right along now, not to make this so long and drawn out, when I graduated from elementary school, I went to O'Keefe Junior High, which was from the 6th grade to the 7th grade. And then they built a new school further out, and that was North Fulton High School. Incidentally, there is no more North Fulton High School, but I was in the first graduating class from North Fulton. Wonderful school, wonderful school. I'd ride a bicycle up Peachtree Road from the house to North Fulton, and if you know Atlanta, there are a lot of steep hills and all.
Yeah.
And up and down Peachtree Street on my bicycle. Okay, now, like I said, everybody, I use the term Civil War. I'm a Southerner, we call it war between the states. But people just don't know, they're used to it. So I use the term Civil War. Though it was not civil, it was uncivil.
Yes.
All right, now, as a young man, I used to go down to the old Confederate soldiers' home, and some of the old vets were still alive. And they would tell me tales about what they had done during the Civil War, and they'd pull out the old footlocker and show me this and that and the other. And I was doing just great, and then I caught erysipelas, which is a bad skin disease. So my mother put her foot down and said, "You can't go to the old Confederate soldiers' home anymore." Oh boy, what a blow that was. So, all right, now, I graduated in 1938, 1934, from North Fulton High School, and I went to, Depression is still on.
Yes.
Okay. My father, I have all of his records of different jobs that he had up at my office. Do you know that a family of 4, the highest money he made was $3,000 a year? Now, every time he'd get a job, the company would go out of business. So it was tough potatoes in those days. And I'll never forget him trudging down that hill there. He used to love the Saturday Evening Post.
Yeah.
And it was 5 cents. Well, they had continued story to be continued next week and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it went up to a dime, 10 cents. And he said, "I bought my last Saturday Evening Post." He said, I can't
spend 10 cents on them. Can't spend the 10 cents
Nope.
on.
Okay.
That's good.
So, then I went to Georgia Tech.
Yes.
And I went to Georgia Tech from 1934 to 1938. Now, during that time, I joined the Governor's Horse Guards, which was riding, and we had to use government horses, but it was National Guard, and it was the 108th Georgia National Guard. Now, every summer, incidentally, I would play polo. We would play polo at Piedmont Park. I wasn't any good at it, but I enjoyed it. And then every summer, we would ride once a week. And we had to ride, our first sergeant was from Fort Riley, Kansas, which was a cavalry school. And he was in the regular cavalry. And so he was our instructor. And we'd take these night rides. Boy, they were rough. We'd ride without a saddle. All we had was a surcingle, which is a strap that holds the saddle on the horse.
Right.
And we had no saddle. And a lot of the men couldn't finish. But if it didn't finish, they were looked upon as oh well, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, every summer we would go up to Fort Oglethorpe. which is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And there we would meet other regiments from like South Carolina or Alabama, and most of these were rifle regiments, but we were machine gun,
Yes.
50 caliber burning guns. Then we would have sand battles and so forth and so on. But the most delightful part was that all of our maneuvers were held in Chickamauga Park, where the big battle of Chickamauga. Yep. Snodgrass Hill, where Thomas made his famous stand as the Rock of Chickamauga. And a lot of the boys didn't know it, but me being a student of the Civil War, I realized right here, men were actually killed right here. And the other guys, they didn't know. So anyway, on Sunday we were free, and we could take a horse and ride through the park. And you see the big monuments if you're driving through, the big monuments to the different corps and the different regiments. But if you're riding through the woods, you see where some family wants to mark the spot where their son was killed, or a woman where her husband was killed. And they put a little granite monument there with his name. It's very touching. Very, very touching. Then you could go up on Missionary Ridge and Lookout Mountain. And by horseback.
That's not too far from
Not
Atlanta.
too far, and you could go by horseback. And we got paid $1 when we weren't on maneuvers. We got $1 a week. But then I think when we got on maneuvers, I think they paid us $1.50. Maybe 50 cents more. These were tough times. All right. Now,
this was when you were in Georgia Tech.
When I was
34
in
to 38.
When I was in Tech. Okay. Now, we would go to places like Pickett's Mill, where there was a battle. We would go to Moon Station. We'd take in Big Shanty, where the famous railroad escaped Andrews Raiders. And Cheatham's Hill. Oh my gosh. Cheatham's Hill. And we'd go on top of Kennesaw Mountain. And great. Okay. So then I graduated in 1938, and I got the first. Well, I had several jobs. One was selling pots and pans wherever. Usually, the big companies would come down. It's an engineering school, and they would interview the graduates for jobs. Well, depression. Nobody came. Hey, what are we going to do? Fortunately, I got a job teaching high school at Russell High School in Fulton County in Atlanta. Well, Russell High was named for a Confederate captain who was killed from Georgia in the Civil War. Everything was the Civil War in those days.
What did you teach? What subject?
I taught mechanical drawing or drafting, and I taught woodworking, and also electric shop. And then I'm still in the National Guard. Then here comes Pearl Harbor in 1941.
Okay. We're going to backtrack now. We're too close to World War II yet. I still got some more questions about the Great Depression.
About what?
About the Great Depression.
Oh, okay.
You were 12 years old when the stock market crashed, correct?
Crashed in 1929.
Right.
I was 12.
So that'd make you 12. Do you remember where you were, like when it happened or the day after it happened? Was it big news?
Well, I remember I was probably down at 5 Points in Atlanta, which is where all the news emanated from. And everybody was talking about it and this and that and the other, and what are we going to do? And I saw a lot of people lined up for bread lines. So my father didn't have to line up.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well, do you remember what the immediate impacts of it were? Like within the next couple of the weeks following the crash? Was it like?
Yeah, I tell you, one thing that got me was my father was a very educated person. He would have been a wonderful university teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He never got into it, and he would love to quote from Shakespeare, or he could name the Tudor line of kings of England. I mean, he knew everything, but there just were no jobs. Right?
No jobs.
No jobs.
What did the Great Depression do to you? Like, what did it force you to do anything? As in, you obviously you graduated high school, and during the Great Depression, you got into college too.
Right.
So,
Okay.
What hardships, if any, did it create for?
My father said to me, he said, I'd like you to go to college, but he said I can't afford to send you to college. Now, if you can find a job and work your way through, that's okay with me. Quote him.
Right.
All right. Now, fortunately, at that time, or shortly thereafter, Franklin Delano Roosevelt became the president. Now, he was quite a good president. I'll get into presidents later.
We'll talk about
Yeah, but the NYA came along.
The what?
NYA.
NYA.
That was the National Youth Administration. That meant that if you went to college and could qualify, you could get a job with NYA. Now, this didn't pay you any money,
Mm-hmm.
but it helped towards your tuition and your books.
Right.
Okay, that was a godsend. And of course, that helped me through college. Then, in addition, I got a job. The new Fox Theater had just been was being built, had just been completed, and I got a job as an usher at the Fox Theater. And then later, I became doorman to collect the tickets at the door. Well, let me tell you, I was Mr. Big. All my friends from school, hey, look here, man, I got a little freebie, So anyway, that is probably about, the graduation ceremony. I don't know if you've ever seen the Fox Theater.
No.
Hugo-mongers. All the big shows from New York would come down, and floor shows and all of that. And the graduation ceremonies were held at Fox Theater. And I remember up on the stage there, you walk across this long stage, and here'd be a dean of men, and here would be the president of the college, and they'd give you your diploma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying. So that pretty well wound that up.
How many jobs do you think you had during the 1930s before you?
The first job I had was selling magazines on a street corner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had a little sack, and I sold Saturday Evening Post, which was a big seller, and Ladies' Home Journal, and Country Gentleman. All of those are defunct and gone. However, I got a penny for every Saturday Evening Post I sold, and a half a cent for Ladies' Home Journal and Country Gentleman. And that was, and I still have my Social Security card from Curtis Publishing Company. Yeah, and it was the inception.
Yeah.
I'm saying 1932.
Yeah.
I would say. Okay. Then I got a job selling pots and pans wherever.
Right.
In those days, they'd let you come in the house, and you could use your pots and pans to cook a dinner for somebody,
Right.
hoping that they would buy a set of wherever pots and pans.
Set of pot pans.
I'm not even too sure wherever's still in business. I doubt it. Fuller Brush man stopped the other day, left his card.
Really?
Couldn't believe Fuller Brush was still in business. Okay, and I had another job. It was a terrible job with a newspaper, but it was an awful job. And then I got a job down at C&S National Bank. That job, you would go down in the vault, and the guard would lock you in. You didn't see daylight from the time you went to work till he came down and let you out at night.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see anybody. My job was verifying money. I had to count dollar bills and strap them up in 50s. And what a monotonous, terrible job that was.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Oh, I guess that's about it. I'm doing this for my posterity. When I kick off, you'll have a record.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Okay. Do you think youngsters today take it for granted that it's somewhat easy to get a job or to find food and just go to the supermarket and there you go, there's food right there? Do you think it's something that...
I think, is that thing on now?
It's on.
I think that it's taken for granted,
Mm-hmm.
that what you've never experienced, you never think about.
Right.
So you just take it for granted. But I heard your father say the other night, he was looking at a Pepperidge Farm loaf of bread, which we use,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a high-class bread, $2 a loaf. Well, we used to pay 5 cents
Right.
a loaf of bread.
Okay. What happened to your mother and father during the Great Depression?
My father, my mother never worked in the business world. She stayed around the house and took care of us kids, I guess. And but my father finally got a job as a deputy with the Internal Revenue Service.
How many jobs do you think your father had?
I would say that my father probably had 8 to 10 different jobs. And one that impressed me as a kid, he would bring home a car every night, but it was a different car.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my gosh, he'd bring home a Rickenbacker, a very expensive car. He'd bring home a Rio Flying Cloud, a very expensive car. He'd bring home a Stutz, and these were cars that were expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And he never said what he did, but they were always different cars.
Right.
Now I realize that he was selling used cars.
Selling used cars.
It never entered my mind at that time, how in the world did that man get these cars?
Yeah.
You know, it just, that was the word.
Yeah, it just didn't occur to you, to
No.
think about what we're...
No, no way.
All right. Where were you when World War II broke out?
I was up in Gainesville, Georgia, when Pearl Harbor came along.
What, do you remember exactly what you were doing?
Yeah, I was driving my car.
Did you hear it over the radio?
I heard it over the radio. Now, everybody at that time said, Pearl Harbor? Where in the world is Pearl Harbor? We've never heard of Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, of course, they found out it was in Hawaii.
Okay.
Now, I happened to be with my future wife at that time.
Uh-huh.
You know her, that's your grandmother.
Yes.
And we both said, my gosh, Pearl Harbor, where is it? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said to her, I said, you know something? This means war. I
Yeah.
told her that.
Yeah.
She had no idea what I was talking about. I said, oh yeah. Okay. So then we parted, and I'm going down the highway on a hot summer day. I'm down near outside of Macon, Georgia, down near Dublin. And it's a perfectly clear day. At that time, Franklin Roosevelt made his famous speech to Congress, in which he said, our neighbor has stabbed us in the back, and so forth, and so on. And this day will live in infamy. You hear it quoted all the time. Now, that was in 1941.
Yeah.
Okay. As I'm driving along, I'm thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to get drafted. I know it's coming. Oh, now wait a minute. Before that happened, the Spanish Civil War came along, and it looked like the United States was going to get involved.
Right.
So I got out of the National Guard
Oh, okay.
because I was afraid they'd federalize it. And I said, oh, now that means I'm going to get drafted. Then, now I had gotten out and the Spanish Civil War came along, but you were allowed to re-enlist in the National Guard one time. Well, the Spanish Civil War had blown over, which was in about whatever, and so I re-enlisted. But then I got out again just about 3 or 4 days before they federalized the National Guard, and I couldn't have gotten out. Now, all those boys were from Atlanta, and they were in the cavalry, which I had been in, but they made them anti-aircraft, and they sent them in total down to New Guinea. And half of those boys never came back due to the Japanese and also disease and so forth and so on. So I was lucky that way.
And then when Pearl Harbor happened, what, like the day after, what did everybody, or when it happened, how did everybody feel then?
It was unbelievable. They just couldn't believe that the Japanese had made the sneak attack.